Coach Henshaw, and I just did the real basic stuff coming out of his Rochester profile, but there'll be more. So we just found out, Coach Manlove, that Jason's a graduate of Westchester Henderson. Any thoughts on that, Coach? Did you ever get a
How
kid from
about that?
Westchester? Did you ever get a guy from Westchester Henderson?
We have one or two, I think, but we didn't get him.
The next thing is, Coach, tell us about your Westchester Henderson and how that went for you. What was that like living down there?
So, I mean, born and raised, I was actually right on Westchester U campus. So, it was, being able sometimes fitting in with the college students and, having good times there. And, but, like I said, it's the original high school. So back then I was at that point of where Ruston was built going into my senior year of high school. So half my team was actually split up and they had to go to Ruston. So it was interesting.
All right, tell us about that Kutztown experience.
So yeah, Kutztown wasn't too good when I got there. We Coach Monica recruited us when I think it was my sophomore junior year. We were 3-18 and bottom of the conference, and then we found a way to kind of turn things around, and we had our first winning season in about 20 to 25 years in 2010, and first time making the playoffs my junior year, and then senior year we ended up winning the PSAC for the first time. And it's kind of cool to look now, 10 plus years now, they're Final Four team now. So to kind of see where that program has kind of taken off is
once the Kutztown thing took place, did you end up at Widener, Coach Henshaw?
Yeah, so I went back home. I graduated that December after I finished my last year. Kind of had no idea what I wanted to do. So I ended up, I was close with Bill Zwan Jr. I played against him, and one of my best friends, Keith Wilson, played at Widener, and Bill Zwan Jr. was a grad assistant there when he played. So he's like, "Won't you come out and help out for the spring?" So spring ball, I was volunteering down at Westchester U and kind of helping out through spring ball, kind of get my feet wet with coaching. I think at that point I realized this is what I want to do. So I actually ended up coaching a year back at Henderson. I was working in the high school with the special ed department. And then, after doing a year, I realized I wanted to get back to college ball. So that's how I ended up at Widener the following season.
And
what year were you at Widener, Jace?
2013 to 18.
And we beat you.
Well, not 14. Not 14.
No, that's not 14.
Not 14.
So you were there the year we threw 6 interceptions when I was at Rowan.
That was so my second year. That's when Bill Shuey was our defensive coordinator. We were running the zone pressures, dropping everybody. Bill McCarthy. So I played with Bill.
Oh, Billy McCarty?
Yeah.
Billy's a good man. He's a good kid. Tough son of a gun.
Yeah. So that was great. I played with Bill at Kutztown, and then he transferred to Rowan. So it was kind of cool to coach against him. So
that was a tough one, but you guys played well. Shuey was nuts. I'll tell you what, you didn't have any idea where the crap was coming from. No clue.
He's a mad scientist.
Yes.
Is he still coaching that fella?
Yeah, so he's with the Jaguars right now. He's the outside backer coach the past couple of years.
Bethlehem Liberty guy.
Yeah, yep.
And I think this is important. So as I read the bio, and I don't know how people get involved in this, but the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship Program, you got involved in that. I mean, I know about that program having been started, but how did you get into that, and what was that experience?
So Bill left Widener, I think, after the 17th season. It's a funny story. He got back into finance to make, that was a really good money maker for him. I think within 2 weeks, Matt Nagy got the job with the Bears. And so he coached with Matt and with the Eagles. So he reached out to Matt and he ended up getting a job there. So there was a process from that point. And then the COVID year happened. And so I wasn't able to go out there during the COVID year. So 21 season finally came, was able to get out there. So that process is somewhat rigorous. It's, you're filling out an application like you're filling out for a job. There's essays involved, letters of recommendation, and all that stuff. But it's definitely helpful when you have somebody in the room to kind of, put your name on the table. So I got to go out there. I spent about half a month out there. So I was actually returning back to Rochester the day we reported for camp. So, from mid-July to mid-August, it's waking up early, leaving late, really getting a real true feel of what it really takes, especially with the QC guys and what they do and the amount of work that they put in, which is cool. Is Ronell Williams, who actually coached with us, who was a Westchester linebacker when I played. So he's a Chester native out of PA. So he was out there. And so, helping him out with all the work and helping Shu out. And obviously I'm a D-line guy. So I took the time to kind of work with the outside backers to kind of get my feet wet with that. And obviously working with somebody like Khalil Mack and Rob Quinn, that's definitely a plus. So, but it was pretty, a lot of times I caught myself trying not to be a fan. So that was probably the toughest part.
All right.
So Mike Harris out there?
Yes, Mike was out there. So I met Mike through Bill when he was obviously he grew up with Shu. And when he was I think he played at Muhlenberg. I think that's
yes.
And then when he was coaching at Wilkes too. So I coached against Mike as well.
We got Jason Henshaw from the University of Rochester. Somewhere in here he's got to give a plug for Rochester too. So, but we'll get down to the defensive line stuff. So I don't know how early he wants to get that plug in, because we know that's all part of the gig here. And I know we have we talk about those 6 degrees of separation. We're hearing so many connections between guys, and now we have one in the corners of my screen. Jason Henshaw and Joe Klaus have a connection. Joe, you here right now?
Yep, I'm here.
You got a kid playing up at Rochester?
Yeah, he's an ugly redheaded kid, played middle linebacker for you.
The kid that drinks nothing but milk.
That's right. Nothing but milk. It's awesome.
So that's pretty cool, because Old Pan's got a kid up there, and I remember, Rochester's been in, and I don't know if one of the fellows is still there, but guy came in a couple of years back, must have been over 5 years, right around 5 years ago, right before your head guy got the job. Says, look, this is going to move forward. I'm telling you, it's going to move forward. He was a running backs coach, I think. And he came in, he says, it's going to move forward. He says, real tough right now where we're sitting in the Liberty League. But then you look at scores this year, and a touchdown here, a touchdown there, and all of a sudden you guys are sitting at 7-3 or 8-2 this year. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting progress about how you guys decided to play the game compared to, and you were in a conference where scoring a touchdown is not easy. Mm-hmm. All right. So, we follow your conference. So, Jason, why don't you get started? We're ready to go.
Just got a little bit about my background in terms of my philosophies and what I believe in. Something that I think can kind of go alongside both sides of the ball in terms of line play, O-line or D-line. This is something that day one I'm sharing with my guys, and in them understanding what the belief is, and when we go into a game, controlling the line of scrimmage, obviously our chances of winning are going to be significantly, going to increase. A dominating defense line or even a lineman is impact and the outcome of the game. Basically, if a quarterback has no time to throw a ball, running back can't turn a corner, it's very tough for those offenses to really try to score like we talked about. But it's really about controlling the line of scrimmage and being dominant in that mindset of understanding the impact the defensive line can have on a game. I've been a part of many defenses where, teams will scheme against our guys so that we're not able to, get a quarterback sacked to change the momentum of a game or to make a big tackle for loss because of what that can do for the team itself. Overall philosophy, this is something that again, as you know, guys, it's coaching, it's a copycat profession. So things get passed down the line. It's somebody I look up to and I kind of, mimic in many ways is Larry Johnson, great defensive line coach. And he was somebody, probably the first speaker I have ever seen when I got into coaching down in Baltimore with the Glacier Clinic. So getting to hear from him and his philosophies and what his beliefs are. But this is a big thing, great passion for the fundamentals, techniques, the details that go into them, doing things the right way, right? And it's really getting these guys to understand, especially nowadays with these kids, they're very emotional about, getting yelled at sometimes. So it's important for them to understand, like, hey, I'm not yelling at you. I just want you to do things the right way. And if I'm asking you to do something again, it's because I care enough to want to see you succeed. So it's again, it goes back to understanding and dominating the line of scrimmage and just being a dominating force. Some of the things I just believe in, and I think this goes across all positions, all levels. The effort, it's being a relentless competitor. Outwork your opponents, commitment to being the best. Defensive line's a special group. It's close, like, offensive linemen are close, but it's D-line, it's a lot of quirkiness, a lot of, a lot of different personalities. So it's important for those guys to be committed to each other, and to work together and compete to be the best versions of themselves. And then toughness, right? You got to be tough, right? Especially at this level, you got some guys that may be undersized, and you're going against 6'3", 6'4", 300-pounders. You got to be a tough guy, right? You got to be able to hang in there, especially playing inside. And like we talked about, the loyalty, and the persistence there. Some of the metrics that I kind of try to use for my guys, and understanding that overall the standard is the standard, right? And you come in and guys have this belief that they should be playing right away. But the thing is the mediocrity is something that I just don't accept in the room. And then once above that is just, being average. And the thing is, like I said, the standard is standard. That's the minimum of what I want to be accepted, right? And in anything above that, that's where we're talking about great players. We're talking about the elite guys. So them just understanding it from a visual standpoint of what this looks like and what I'm looking for. 3 Ps, okay? Poise, punish, and pressure, right? And we'll talk a little bit about alignment and assignment. But to be poised and, especially I had a freshman this year, he got in the game for the first time. He's dropping his mouthpiece all over the place, and it's just like, get yourself together, man. But, just being poised in those moments, right? And it's as simple as, hey, what's my alignment? What's my assignment, right? Punish, having an alpha mentality, understanding, hey, it's Bill Shuey says, it's a man whoop another man's ass game, right? It's like, you gotta win your one-on-one matchup. It's a 1/11th mentality, but it's really believing that, hey, I'm going to beat this man in front of me, and understanding that. And then the pressure, making offenses uncomfortable, whether that be in the pass game, being in the run game, but playing with relentless effort and really having that mindset of, I need to make these guys uncomfortable. So just kind of the basics in terms of the fundamentals, the 4 phases of each step. We talk about the alignment, assignment, and adjustments. So when we talk about the adjustments, it's like, hey, if there's a tight end being traded or any type of motion, if a running back, all of a sudden he's flaring out and we have pill contained, we got to make sure we're on that and understanding those different adjustments. If we need to, shift our blitzes from one side to another, or any checks we have. So that's where those adjustment periods is important. We talk about those first 2 steps, right? And then we're going to kind of get into that when we talk about the striking and the hand placement there. But the execution part, right? Executing the blitz, the stunt, whatever it is. Again, understanding the 1/11th mentality and taking that to different levels of, hey, this is where my assignment is. I'm a A-gap player. I need to be in that A-gap. I don't need to be worried about what's going on in the B-gap. That is somebody else's responsibility. So stressing that across the board there. And then the finish. One thing I'm not too proud about is when we look back at the season this year, and as Coach talked about how close we are to winning a lot of games, we missed 39 sacks this year. And that's not something I'm proud of. But it's, again, that accountability that, I've talked to my guys about, and that's something we're not going to allow to happen again. But the finish part was a big part of that. And being able to finish those plays, and we've been in positions to finish plays. We just got to execute that. Stance. something is basic, but I keep it very simple to where we do, and this isn't something that we're going to spend 2-3 days on. This will be a day one of camp situation where we're going to work the stance. The thing where the guys that need the most work are obviously the new guys, the first year guys. And that's something where I tell those guys, hey, this is, if you want to get your stance right, this is something pre-practice you need to be out of practice early working on, or after practice. It's a lot of the older guys will help those guys out with this stuff. So it's important for them to kind of take that time, but I don't want to spend too much time on that, just because there's so much other stuff we need to get to. But the execution there is this having the inside hand down, ball hand down on first and second down situations. Third downs where I let the outside guys kind of have a little freedom there. As you see guys like, Nick Bosa and all those guys, they like to have that outside hand down on pass rush situations just to work that timing of the footwork compared to where they're working their move or how they're trying to work their move. So I give a little bit of freedom to those older guys in those pass rush situations. But for the most part, we're going to have our inside hand down, that ball hand down, that inside foot back. And then in terms of the hips up, back flat and not having it up. And again, that's something too we'll differentiate between run downs and pass downs. Run downs, we want to have more of a flat back. With the pass rush, we want to be a little bit staggered, track stances, and having our butt up there. The strike position. Now, that's something too some guys are, adjusting to, is not having that hand dangling. It's really having that hand ready to strike, because the progression of what we work is the hands, hips, and feet. So we'll work the hands to the hips to the feet, but it's important to have that hand ready to strike. You're at a 90-degree angle with that offhand and ready to strike there. Pass situation, like we talked about, you'll reduce that stagger, raise the hips up a little bit more. Okay. When we talk about keys, we're talking about pre-snaps, and I'll get a little bit more detailed in that later, but you're looking at a lot of different things. Something I'm kind of progressing through with my first year guys as they come up and meet with me individually. We talk about obviously the alignment and assignment, but the other thing is the looking at and understanding formations, right? Understanding what teams like to do, understand personnel, and as they get into their own film study, their understanding and their football cues getting a little larger with that. For example, if we got a team that loves to run their zone scheme team, right? And a lot of times if they're not in pistol, understanding where back placement is, right? If I'm a defensive end and I have a back to my side, most likely I know I'm getting red. If it's a zone scheme team, especially to an open side with no tight end, okay, I can alert myself that, hey, I'm going to get a down block here. I got quarterback. And then once that ball's handed off, I can get down the line and make a play. And comparable to a 3 technique, to the other side, I got back away from me. Most likely I'm going to get a reach block. So those guys understanding formationally what's happening, and so that it allows them to put themselves in position of success to make plays. Strike technique, like we talk, we're attack and react team. We're using our hands. We're firing those hands off the ball. In terms of hand placement, this has, I actually was down somewhere at Findlay, Ohio this past weekend talking to their defensive staff. And some of the things that they kind of talked about in terms of hand placement kind of changed my mind about some things in terms of why they don't work the sternum, because of where, the movements of the O-line and how things work. So it's more of a shoulder to inside of the armpit almost. So it's kind of changed my perspective of how I want to approach that this spring with the hand placement there. The other thing too is that a lot of times guys are looking to grab, right, when they strike with their hands. It's working that bottom of that the top of the wrist there to where it's more of a impact, it's more of a hump than compared to, sometimes a lot of times guys will look to strike with, here, but it's more, again, we're talking hands up, thumbs out, actually, elbows in, and really trying to shock and then shock and grab almost with that technique. So the feeding line blocks, again, it's just the eyes, the hands, like I said, play side shoulder. the feet, and then keeping the pad level. That's important. So and then some of these things. We'll talk about pressure points later as we can. We'll show some drills there with that. Alignments, again, everybody's different. I think the biggest argument you'll get is what you call an inside shade of a tight end. I've called it all the ways. I've been with different guys. That some people call it a 6-eye. Right now, currently, we're calling it a 7. So that's, universally, I wish we would stick to one thing, but that's the complication there with coaching.
Jason,
yes.
I got a question. And this is really for the whole room, guys. When you take a look at this, and you may not even realize you just alluded to answering the question, but common vocabulary, because I'm just hinting at this. When we're thinking college, Tom, this could happen. You have to, when you're in practice and you're the O-line coach and you're working with the D-line coach, and you've had those great experiences of working with Phil Petit, Tom.
Yep.
Right. For you to say, hey, give me a 4-eye, it really helps that he knows what you mean by 4-eye.
No question about it. And even when you're talking with your players offensively, is, we got to talk the same language. I don't want to hear, well, he's here, he's there. No, give me, is it a 2-eye, a 3? This is a very interesting numbering system that I don't think I've seen before, but not saying that's not a negative, Jason, but
no, absolutely.
But just a side note of that, Tom, is Joe's in this room. When I got to coach with Joe, it's something that he really pushed and we agreed upon, because that way, the scout team wise, we didn't need go route and all that other stuff they have now. It was just, we worked the common language all the time in everything that we did on all sides of the ball. And I think it helped a ton. So I see what you're alluding to there, Jason. I think it's a really, really pertinent point, especially, high school kids teaching them the game, and some kids going on both sides of the ball. So.
But to dovetail on that, Deej, I think what happens is you eliminate scout cards if you're all talking the same language. And that's been, a bone of contention a lot, where you're going like, hey, why show a card to a kid if he's now not applying anything that he's being taught in his mind? Mm-hmm. But if you're calling it in their vernacular, okay, we run this stuff. Now the kid's applying his technique based on the call, and you're developing the young guys at the same time. So they're not traveling from scout period to their team period. Now they're going, okay, we were calling it this down there, but now it's this.
Yeah, to that point, though, I've worked for, I think, 4 or 5 different coordinators. There's an adjustment that as any coach, you can't be stubborn and say, oh, I call it this. It's like, hey, whatever it is, hey, that's the first thing I say. What do you call what? And this is what we're going to call it, So there's just a consistency and adjustment that you have to be willing to to do. And that's just, that's something I've experienced. And at the end of the day, like you both covered on, is it's being vertically aligned in what you're calling everything. And even, Coach Martinovich, our head coach, does a great job in terms of overall the playbook. What we call on defense, the offense is calling it, and they're recognizing it as what we call in terms of our formations. And when we do breakdowns on offenses, the formations, the calls is our offensive terminology. So like you talked about, it cuts down so much time in terms of scouts, where sometimes I can just write on a card, hey, run this, and the scout team offensive line knows exactly what it is. So to that point, it's a great, point to, be universal and make sure that everyone on both sides of the ball is calling the same things. So this is kind of just a drill menu. In terms of how I work the drills, especially day one of camp, there's a progression of, I've kind of just been embedded in my mind of working, the run, taking care of the run game, and then working to the pass. Now, when I was in college, pass drills and stuff like that was pretty much one-on-ones, and so that itself has progressed in the game and over the years of different types of drills you can work and different things here. But so I kind of just separated in terms of what I'm looking for in that sense. But again, the progression I like to work in is working your hands, getting those guys' hands right in terms of where the placement is, the strike progression, We're then following up with the hips. With the hands, I like to work a drill called the quick hand press, where they're on all fours and they're working their hands quickly. You've probably seen it. You can work it on a sled. Progressing to then following through now, keeping the elbows tight, now exploding through the hips, right? There's other ways of doing it. You work a 0 step with a pad, but a lot of different ways. And so again, I'm progressing down the line there. So we talked about the pre-snap stuff, and I think that, again, it's valuable. This was valuable for me, as a player. The thing is, in the mindset and understanding the mindset of a student athlete is, when I first got to college, I thought, hey, I'm just going to continue to do what I did that got me here. And a lot of times with that was just the ball get snaps, I'm just ripping upfield. And so, playing teams like Shippensburg, who was a wing T team for a long time, and getting kicked out and this, and then I learned pretty quickly, all right, I need to become a better student of the game. And so this is vital for my guys to understand pre-snap, understanding, hey, if a guard is, looking at the split between guard and center, looking at the difference in terms of, hey, is he back? He may be pulling, right? And I was able to read a lot of that times of seeing that pull before it happened. And so I had some freedom to, work across the center's face and penetrate the A gap. Or, if a tackle, all of a sudden he's really chest high, no hands on the ground, kind of a relaxed hand on the knee, eyes and where his eyes are, understanding that may be a passing situation. So those guys, again, it kind of goes back to understanding the formations, but to kind of break it down to just the line play of seeing the guys in front of you, reading your keys pre-snap and their hands in the dirt, if their hands up. And that's a lot of this is going to be film study or what they see during the week, right? As they progress through the game. And a lot of times, a lot of these guys come in and they're like, I don't know how to watch film. And it's like, so this is where I kind of a step one for them. It's like, this is what you're looking at. Pausing, slow-mo, and it's not just about watching the games through, but really seeing, okay, is there a consistency with a guy? And so the one thing that we do that we've kind of transitioned 2 years ago, where when we did scouting reports, we used to be the guys writing the breakdowns in terms of the write-ups of the players. We got to a point where like our guys wasn't watching film enough early during the week, so we made our position groups actually do the write-ups. So the D-line will do the O-line, linebackers, tight ends, and running backs, fullbacks, and the DBs will do the quarterbacks and receivers. So they're actually watching the positions that they should be keying. And so they're starting to notice and pick up on these things, and they're working together and saying, hey, the left tackle for Union, he's a big kid, but his footwork, he likes to shoot his hand on his first step. Or pre-snap, he's looking at the dirt or the turf if he's in a run situation. So these guys just understanding the nuances when it comes to pre-snap and how, again, can help them put themselves in successful situations. So the other thing is the blocking schemes and understanding at what position, what you're getting. I think that's vital. If right now I have a kid, Vic Little, is a kid outside of Burnt Hills, going into his third year next year, where he's wants to understand and kind of simplify the game for himself to slow it down and understanding. And I think part of that is understanding blocking schemes. That's kind of that second level, third level of the progression in terms of the IQ part. Power, understanding as a nose, if I got a guard pulling away from me, I know it's probably power, counter, or some type of gap scheme where the ball is going opposite way. And so in understanding where I can use my hands, understanding where the ball is. As a 3 technique, if I'm getting a double team, that ball's coming right to me, right? And understanding I can strike, and what we call them strike and get those guys on 2 levels to separate and then be able to shed and make a play. Base blocks is a 3 technique or a defensive end. I know that ball's hitting inside. So them understanding, hey, this is what I'm getting. I understand where the ball is. So it eliminates, I think, at least in my experience, the peaking of trying to find where the ball is, right? So now it's like, okay, I'm a nose or a 3 technique. I get that full block. I know I can just keep shoving that thing down, right? I don't need to peek and see where the ball is. I know where the ball's going, right? If I'm a defensive end, I get a down block. I know this is getting red. I can keep my eyes, and we talk about the triangle read with those guys is eyes inside, see if there's any pullers. You know, in certain situations, mostly we're going to spill those pullers or anything coming at them. And in certain ways, we'll box things and then getting our eyes back to the quarterback, but also staying attached to that tackle, stepping on that hill, keeping that inside foot, you know, flat down so that they're able to transition if that quarterback does keep the ball. So it's just, you know, helpful for those guys to understand the blocking schemes. I tell them, I think between the 3 technique and 5 tech, open side 5 technique is probably the easiest positions because it eliminates a lot of blocking schemes, right? As a 5 technique, and I'm just got a tackle to my side, I know it's the reach, down, you know, a pass set, base block, or we call a hinge high wall. And so it just kind of very simplifies of what we're getting, and they can get their eyes to where they need to be. So a little bit of drill work here. Like I said, there's a lot of things at this level. What I try to do is it's my concept of what I want to get done is building a better athlete. I am somebody who, as a defensive line coach, and I know this probably sounds crazy, I'm not too worried about, you know, the height and the weight of things. I myself, I would be a hypocrite. I'm a 5'11", 6 foot. I was 260 pounds, you know, and I was told that I was too small to play Division II football. So I don't want to be a hypocrite and tell somebody, hey, you can't play D-line here as a defensive end as a 6'2", 210, 215-pound player, because I've had some really good players that were able to get the job done. But the thing I stress to these guys is, like, you got to play strong, right? You can't, if you're going to be 205 pounds or 210 pounds, you better be a bull, right? You better play very strong. You know, if you're going to be inside and you're only going to weigh 265 pounds or 250, you know, you better have great leverage, right? And so there's a trade-off there with that. So overall, though, I'm trying to build a better athlete. And this is something I just do every day. I'll switch between agile bags and ladders at the beginning of practices to just work the footwork and the agilities there. And again, I know this is through Zoom, so I hope it's not too choppy for you guys.
It's not choppy at all, Jason. You and I spoke about this today. It's fine.
Thank you. But this is just something they want, you know, every day. Those guys know they're going to get going. Just working the different footworks, you know, working, you know, the hips, and I'll get the hip movements involved. You know, but kind of doing a lot of different variations of these stuff. But like I said, it's really about the thing I emphasize with this, though, is that it's about knee drive, right? To be a good athlete, you have to have knee drive. So when they work through this, I really want them emphasizing it's not so much of the feet quickness, but the knee drive of everything they do. You know, and a lot of guys, it's working the running technique too, and the running form that we're doing with these guys, with the trainers here, is the arm movements, right? And getting them comfortable with moving their arms and just moving, you know, and changing direction in that matter.
Jace, the one thing
yes.
When you're doing the bags, one of the things that fascinated me as I got older in doing these things is really the guys have a tendency to look down at their feet.
Yes.
And you're going like, man, you do that, you're going to get blown up. And really emphasizing them to have their eyes up and trust their feet are going to do what you want them to do. It's the guys that have confidence that are the ones that are looking up.
The one thing I kind of will do too is I'll, like, if they're doing side shuffle through, I'll have a number up and they have to give me the number and read out the number. But I 100% agree with that. And when I see it's like eyes, have that, like you said, confidence of trusting where your foot is going to be, right? And because when you're playing football, you can't look down and I'm stepping down. You gotta have your eyes in the right places and still trust that your athleticism is going to take care of the rest. This one here is kind of, especially the footwork of when you guys get reach blocks, right, of the feet quickness. And the one thing is, like, it's not so much of a step. They got to be able to, it's almost like a basketball shuffle, right? Of them trusting that their footwork and matching that with the hands and getting their hips in the right place. This is like a screen recognition. Something I changed with this because of the where we need to get our eyes when, again, realistically, when you're getting a screen, especially a receiver screen, it's about once you read that screen, it's no longer with the eyes of being at the quarterback or in the backfield. It's as soon as I read it, I need to just turn and run. So one thing I've kind of done with this drill is they'll work through. I'll hold a bag at an angle, and they're coming through. They're turning full speed as they're turning that hip. They're driving and really trying to bring all that weight through on that tackle because, as you guys know, the D line on the retrace is the big play on the screen plays, and that's where that can hopefully cause turnovers or whatever. But that's something that I've kind of changed with this drill of getting their eyes back now to where the ball's being thrown. So this is we talk about pressure points in terms of just where the hands and all that stuff. So this is like just a strike, separate, shed drill. I do this with a person in the back too, so where they have to fit and actually make a tackle and be in a position of control. But it's really about that separation, getting that buzz in the feet, getting that knockback, and bringing your body through. But the thing is in pass rush, even in run situations, is clearing that inside hip, right? Of driving that inside leg through to clear that hip through. That way, you're in a position of power where you can make a play. A lot of times, guys get too chest to chest, or they're too heavy. There's really no separation. One thing I want guys to emphasize as well is really to really push that guy inside to condense the inside gap, especially if you're getting a base block. So this is something I actually stole from Aaron Donald a little bit with the Crowns. And I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago, there was a viral video of somebody using a knife. I think it was a rubber knife, but I don't want to use a knife. I don't want to get fired here. So kind of emphasize with the Crowns here. So they're working their hands. So a lot of times I'll go one side, I'll go left, right, both hands, and then they'll work a pass rush move off of it. Here we're working, we call a side scissor, where it's a high hand, and them understanding the difference between when I'm getting low hands, when I'm getting high hands, what is it that I can work, right? And side scissors is that move. We work a chop slip, which is basically an outside hand chop down on that wrist, working the over, and I call it a slip. That's something Mark Fetterman kind of put in my head. He was my defense coordinator my first year wider. I don't like, because when you think of swim, it's triggering words of, I don't want to expose this armpit, right? I want to be able to slip it over, almost punching down to the ground so that it's quick and it's a quick punch instead of trying to slip over or swim over, sorry.
Jason, so you'll work hand movements based on hand height.
Yes.
Hand levels. Okay.
Correct. And so they're like, all right, give me the high hand moves, side scissors. They can work a regular scissors. Low hands, it's more of a chop or a trap. They can do like a side swipe with that, or a cross chop is something I learned from Rob Quinn when I was with the Bears. Most of those guys really like that. That's a popular move now. But them understanding, okay, this is what I'm getting. Because if I'm getting a high hand move, I don't want to chop his hands down because that's going to be putting more effort. I want to maybe lift, or really try to work a outside hand lift and then rip through. It's also understanding what is my finisher. If I'm slipping or I'm ripping, high hands, I want to rip under, right? I don't want to try to slip over a high hand move. That's where now, if I get low hands, that's a slip compared to, but now if I get low hands, I don't want to rip his hands up on me. I want to get them down and off me. So them just understanding the difference of what they're getting. Like I said, now we're working the hips here. This is just what I call a person gauntlet, where they're just kind of working that timing of the footwork. And then the emphasis here is really condensing, really getting hip. It's almost like a box out, basketball box out, and then finishing on in. But it's really getting that belly button. The emphasis in pass rush is getting that belly button to the quarterback. Because if our belly button's to the quarterback, we're in a great position to make a play. a lot of times where guys miss sacks or they'll get run by is because of where their belly button is. That belly button is going to take them to where they're going to go. So if I'm working a speed rip and I consistently just getting vertical, that's because of where my belly button's working. Eventually, I got to work my hips around where my belly button's going to be to get to where I need to be. But again, it's the working and keeping the feet separated so that their feet should really never come together. And so then we can work it with the cans. Really, with the cans, it's better because they have a visual of where they need to get their chest to. They want to get that chest down and over the can. And that's where they're going to have a really good situation with their footwork. The times you see guys struggle is because their chest is too high with that. So we talked about, again, eyes, right, and being able to read blocks. So this is I have different variations of the mirror drill. The other variation is where they're going to work different. They're going to receive different blocks based off the footwork, and they have to react to that and reset themselves. So we'll have like 3 linemen in a row. But this is like the basic of them at least stepping with the right footwork as they see these things and where we're going. So if I'm getting a down block as a 3 technique, I know I need to step at a 45-degree upfield and squeeze that guy down to make that tackle climb so that I'm not getting cut off, and I'm also keeping that linebacker free from that guard. But just again, the eyes, the hand, the eyes, the foot coordination of them seeing it and reacting to it at a good pace. This is like a competitive drill, working to get off. You know, they're racing to the first man to tag that trash can, of really getting that in the mindset of that's what a pass rush is, especially in one-on-one situation. It's a race, right? It's a race to that spot. They especially want to beat that lineman to that drop point of where he's trying to set to, you know. The thing is that we had one of our linebackers join that drill. It's eliminating that agile there is helpful to eliminate that false step, but also to make sure, again, he's a little too high there, but to make sure that they're taking a really good knee drive with that first step. So here's the pressure points. Again, there's the chop slip, and then they just have an all lineman there. They're at the balls of their feet. I call what you see them doing, that's playing the drums, right? We want to make sure that our hands are in a fighting position. We don't want to have our hands low. We want to have our hands ready, right? And as soon as we're ready there, you see it, they're working that hand, striking down, getting that hip. There's the hip flip, getting involved there, kind of translating, and then clearing your inside hip through and into a buzz of your feet so that you're in a good football position. I'll work the other side. So there's the side scissors. Again, this is where it's vital for your offensive lineman or whoever's giving the look. They need to give a good look. They can't have lazy hands. They gotta, hey, let me get some good hands so that they're able to work that move. So this is something I like to work, especially when you're getting a double team as a nose. It's in the double, like any type of double team in a pass rush situation is keeping your hands and hips active, right? It's almost like it's the what's the 90s show, the with everybody and all the Ultimate Warriors and Gladiators, I think I can't remember exactly. I'm dating myself now. But where they're working through that and being active there, but also make sure I put the agile there so that they're staying tight to that man and not drifting upfield.
Coach, it's American Gladiators, by the way.
American Gladiators, thank you.
Yeah.
That was going to bother me for the rest of the day. We'll see another version of this, but this is just a regular gauntlet where, again, they're working the hands, the coordination of the footwork, you know, working and then working that finish. Perfect. So these are some of the drills I kind of take from the Bears. This is more of a team drill, defensive drill. Again, working movements, working it and then working the turnover and getting fumble. This is something that we've incorporated here at Rochester where we do circuits. So our defense coordinator, Chris Sapp, he'll basically give me, we call it a blitz circuit. Well, he'll have me work with every position group. And as you see, as I'll show some of these drills, it's vital to especially like if you're a high pressure team or anytime you got guys, you got different guys blitzing, the techniques, a lot of times they're not going to work that or understand it. And, I see it more because we have what we call a rush position where it's a hybrid linebacker and D lineman, where there's a lot of times they are missing out on techniques because they'll be with the linebackers. So this year they're going into this spring, they're going to be working more with me because a lot of what they do is going to be more defensive line emphasized. So we work a lot of drills, we'll work circuits to get these other position groups an understanding of what the movements are and so that they're comfortable with those movements. As you'll see, some of them won't be comfortable with the movements. So if you're working the drop guys, like when I was at Widener, like Coach, we were talking about, we were a zone pressure team, we would drop defensive ends. So it's, just a simple drill of them getting their read step, and we would read run first, right? And then when they are in a dropping situation, it's important to have their hand placement in the foot in terms of their alignment so they're able to take that step and not have to turn their shoulders or turn their body completely. So they're in a position where they're getting their eyes. So this is like a tight corner, really working the tightness of it, and really working that edge of working that drop of the shoulder, turning the hip, and then the finish. And this is something I previously didn't work in terms of the finish, is the reach of the actual getting that muscle memory of going for the ball. As you see a lot of NFL guys, a lot of times when they go for a quarterback, they're not looking for the hit, they're going for that football. Obviously it still counts as a sack, but you're getting that turnover. And so really trying to emphasize to our guys, and it's hard because they're college students, so a lot of times they just want to go for the big hit, but sometimes it's so unnecessary, is that if we see on film, we're slowing it down. Like, imagine if you just reached and went for this ball here, it's a turnover for us. So really emphasizing that on that finish.
Hey, Jason, when you talked about missing sacks with your program this past year, so you're getting there now. That's a big point, right? You're
Yes.
getting there. Was it a matter of lack of athleticism, or is it a matter of a lack of understanding of how to be under control?
It's a couple things. So in some positions, like if we had a safety blitzing at a linebacker, it's just that, again, understanding where your hips need to be, the pad level. And so that's where there's a missed opportunities. Other times it's where the belly button is, right? We have the kid that come off the edge, work a great cross chop. All of a sudden, he's hit his belly button still upfield. When he goes to turn, he's laid off coming off it. But if he just turns his belly button and get his hips in the right position, he's finishing. So it's a variation of a number of things, and that's something we're looking at and we're emphasizing. And honestly, we're trying to think of some drills that really emphasize that finish of where we need to be. So this is a fun drill. This is called a boomerang drill. So here we have, I think we have Khalil Mack and his brother. His brother was on the team at the time. It's a very competitive drill. It's really, we'll go off of one man's, he'll be the trigger, and you got to go off of that. It's working the eyes, working the seeing that movement, and working working around that edge. Something that I kind of tweaked with this, again, to help my guys understand these movements, whether obviously these are all pro guys, they know what to do. So something I kind of changed with that is adding that crown to it. So breaking it down to its component of really emphasizing that chopping down of when you're hitting that edge, it's chopping and dropping that shoulder and working around. So here this is how we originally worked it. So they're working around that edge, again, emphasizing that reach. You see how some guys are not getting that chop enough, because the better you have that chop, you're dropping that shoulder, it's limiting that hitting surface for that offensive lineman. So here you have linebackers. Now you see how something like this kid is very stiff. He's not used to these type of movements. So it's like, again, getting different, getting those guys to work different drills than they normally would work. Like, as you see this kid here to what number is this? 10, I think he is, or 15. You see how his hip, where his belly button is? That's an awkward turn for him. And so that's where we would miss a sack in that situation, where he needs to be more like the other guy and to get that belly button around. So now we got some DBs working it. You see the chop now, all of a sudden they're just running and turning and them not understanding the techniques to it. So if we got blitzes, we got them coming off the edge, or even in a lot of cases, we got them coming into the inside and beat gap. So it's important for them to kind of understand pad level, understanding what they have at their disposal in terms of weapons and using their hands and the leverage and all that stuff.
Hey guys, as you watch this, or you notice when Coach talks about the defensive backs that are coming in, which are obviously the thinner kids, that those kids square off movements as opposed to bend into a circular movement which the defensive linemen are much more comfortable with. And that probably leads them to have to make like a double cut, put their foot in the ground, come back at 90 to make a tackle on the quarterback when they're blitzing. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we kind of added 2 guys there. So this one for safety, because we have some guys that just love running into each other. But now we're getting that, both sides getting that chopping of the arm down. Again, when they reach, it's really about getting that chest down, because you're going to have a longer arm compared to just having your hand up. It's really getting that chest down on that reach. Yeah. So here's another way. It's like just the straight gauntlet. Now they have tighter confinements, and this finish here, it's really about that club coming all the way through to really clear your hip around. And you'll see some guys struggle to get that hip around and work it down to finish. Now, I call that a karaoke technique, where they're trying to go for the ball but securing the tackle there. You see how he took more steps than needed because he's not following through with that club arm. Now he does really good initially. The emphasis here is really getting your shoulders parallel to the bag, but then moving on to that next bag. Right there, he's got to follow through with the club arm to allow him to make that an easier transition for him. So here you have linebackers. So this is one of our starting linebackers, or Sam Backer. Again, he's not used to these movements. He's not used to using his hands this way. It's a struggle for him. So it's really, a lot of times they want to rush through the drill because they think it's a speed drill, but it's technique. Slow it down, go at your own pace. So what I'm saying to them here is that they need to, it's really an emphasis of the hands and getting that hip there, getting your shoulders parallel to that bag. So I kind of combine this drill. So this is what we call the 0 step. So it's really emphasizing the hands and the hips, and then propelling yourself off of your toes without moving, without stepping, right? I kind of added the sled to it, or the chute to it, to keep their pad level down, and also adding a target for where their hands should be. We talk about when we are striking our hands, we want our hands above our eyes. So they should almost be finishing like Superman, like you're flying. So he does a great job here of the hands above the eyes, how flat he is. He's exploding. And that's a very good position right there. That's when you know you're coming off the ball correctly. So he does a fantastic job of getting the hands high. The thumbs are up, elbows are in. He's in a great position there. Same thing. Great hand position, great finish. If you're finishing like that, that's great. That's really good right there. Now, that kid was too low. You see here, his hands are too low. As I kind of slow it down here. See where his hand, he's striking. He wants to strike higher because it ends up putting his hands low. And then at that point in time, you're not in a good position there.
So you've broken things down to a great level of detail. Do you ever find where kids are thinking too much and not just actually responding to the stimulus? And if so, how do you counter that?
You're talking about Rochester kids. Oh my God. And so a lot of times of how they process their academics, they try to apply it to football. And it's like, no, this is not an equation. And it's honestly a continuous battle day after day after day of getting these guys to not think too much and not try to approach football like they do their academics. And so for the really, really smart kids, a lot of times, and me just, it's humbling sometimes to really, sometimes I have to sit back and say, I know what's happening because everything comes easy to you for academics and you feel like you know it. So even if I'm telling you, hey, this is the best way to do it, you still want to try to figure out a way on your own to try to counter that. Because it's almost like they're competitive in their own nature of trying to find a different way or a better way or their way of doing it instead of just listening. So it is a consistent battle. That's something where individually, when I meet with those guys, of getting them to understand and simplifying things for them.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the question, which I think is really important here, and that's the recruitment of your players, because you definitely have all body types in there, and that goes back to your initial point of hey, look, I'm looking for the kids to understand leverage, be strong in what their body type is. I mean, right off the bat, I don't think you can hide this, Jason. You want an athletic kid.
Yeah.
You know, because I would imagine, I haven't seen Rochester play, right? But you have to have, and I bring it up in meetings all the time, you need players without position that can move and do different things, because your DNA is, even because you're going to be a coordinator eventually. Like, you're eventually going to be a coordinator and head coach. I mean, that's where it's going to go. Especially since you come out of this clinic series. Tom Dottie and I kid about it all the time. The guy comes in, speaks at his clinic. Next thing you know, he's moving up another position somewhere, right? It just seems to happen that way. But you know, your zone blitz background that you got at Widener is with you. It doesn't leave you. What you're being exposed to now, with your period of time with the Bears, what you got from Kutztown, what you got from high school, you know, coming up field, as you were saying, and you started getting trapping in Shippensburg. You want your guys coming up field, don't worry about the trap. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, let's get off darn ball and don't worry about that with the youngin. All right. But I just think there's a totality of what you're trying to do. So your kids have to be able to do a number of things.
What was interesting, Jace, that you talked about, and it is something that for me, I was the same way, is that I was considered an undersized guy and told you're too small. And I'm watching film, it was, I want the best guy. I don't care how he looks. I don't care how he looks. I want the best guy. It's very frustrating to hear guys, you know, friends that I talk to, man, I like his size. I go, can he play? Can he play? Or do you like his size?
Yes.
You know, I want guys that can play and that are athletic, because the athletic kids will not get injured as much because they're athletic. Right. It's the slow-footed guys that are the guys their feet get caught in the ground and bam, bad stuff happens as soon as your feet get caught in the ground. But no, I think that was awesome, because at times I thought I was a little bit the outlier in thinking that way. But
the thing too is we obviously, if I'm coaching at Alabama, that's got to change. But Division III football, it's about finding the best talented player. And we had a recruiting meeting the other day. It's finding the best football players. We trust our coaching that we'll get guys coached up, but it's finding the best talent that we can that meet obviously our academic standards too. But it's finding the best guys.